You are watching this video right now because there's something in your life you're holding onto so tightly that it's preventing you from thriving. Something you know, deep in your heart, you need to surrender to God, but every time you think about it, your mind finds 1,000 excuses to keep controlling. If you give me the next few minutes of your life, I'll show you why. Letting go is the most powerful secret in the Bible for unlocking supernatural prosperity and abundance. And why 99% of Christians never manage to apply this principle, even though they know it's God's will. I know this internal struggle all too well. You pray for financial blessings, but refuse to let go of how they should come. You cry out for miracles in relationships, but can't release the people, for God to work in them. You want prosperity at work, but won't let go of the need to control every detail. If you give me your full attention now, I guarantee you'll leave here understanding why letting go is the key that opens all the doors you've been trying to force, and how it can transform your financial, emotional, and spiritual life in a matter of days. Let me start by debunking the biggest lie you tell yourself. If I don't control things, they'll go wrong. That's a lie. Obsessive control isn't wisdom. It's a lack of faith disguised as responsibility. I'm going to explain what really happens in the spiritual realm when you refuse to let go. The Bible teaches us in Isaiah 55:8-9, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways." When you desperately cling to control, you're literally preventing God from using His infinite wisdom in your situation. It's like a child trying to drive a car, stopping the experienced father from taking the wheel. Every time God wants to bless you financially through an unexpected opportunity, you block it because it wasn't how you planned. When He wants to restore a relationship through forgiveness, you hinder it because the person needs to apologize first. When He wants to promote you at work, you sabotage it because it wasn't the way you imagined. And your carnal mind, which Paul calls enmity against God, starts creating elaborate justifications. I need to be prudent. God helps those who help themselves. I can't be irresponsible. I have to do my part. But here's the truth no one tells you. These aren't Christian virtues. They're manifestations of unbelief. You don't truly trust that God has a better plan than yours. Remember Abraham? God told him to leave his land, his family, his father's house, for a land He would show him. Abraham didn't ask where, didn't make a plan B, didn't try to control the details. Genesis 12:4 simply says, "So Abraham went as the Lord had told him." He let go of everything: security, comfort, predictability. And because of that, he became the father of multitudes and heir to eternal promises. If he had tried to control how God would fulfill the promises, he would have never left. This is the first crucial point of this video. Obsessive control is a defense mechanism that blocks God's best plans for your life. Your flesh is trying to protect you from uncertainty, but it's robbing you of the most extraordinary miracles God has prepared for you. To understand the spirituality of letting go, I need to talk about something few preachers explain properly: emotional attachment as an obstacle to prosperity. Jesus said in Matthew 19:21, "If you want to be perfect, go, sell everything you have and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come, follow me." The rich young man went away sad because he had many possessions. The problem wasn't having wealth. The problem was being attached to wealth. Abraham was extremely rich but wasn't attached. Job lost everything and said, "The Lord gave and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." He knew how to let go. Attached Christians have a problem. They want God to bless them, but on their terms. They want prosperity without risks. They want restored relationships without forgiving. They want spiritual growth without surrendering the ego. It's like wanting muscles without the pain of exercise, or a degree without the pressure of studying. It doesn't work that way in God's kingdom. First, you let go of what's in your hand, then God places something infinitely better. The first tool to learn to let go is so simple it seems too obvious, but when applied biblically, it revolutionizes your experience with God. Stop now and identify one area of your life where you're trying to control everything. Be brutally honest. Are you trying to control how God should provide money? How He should change your spouse? How He should open professional doors? how he should heal your family. Physically write on paper, I let go of control over, and complete it with that specific area. When you externalize attachment through writing, you're doing what Hannah did when she gave Samuel to God, turning possessiveness into consecration. 1 Samuel 1:28 records Hannah's words, "So now I give him to the Lord. For his whole life, he will be given over to the Lord." She wasn't afraid to let go of what she loved most, and because of that, God gave her many more children. When you name and surrender control, you're doing something deeply spiritual, acknowledging that God is God and you are not. And this releases God's supernatural power to work in your situation. But letting go of control is just the beginning. Now I'll teach you something that goes against everything the world teaches about success: how to fear the right thing spiritually. The world teaches you to fear letting go of control. The Bible teaches you to fear not letting go. Close your eyes and visualize with me. 5 years from now, you're still trying to control this area of your life. How do you feel? What blessings did you miss because you didn't trust God? What miracles didn't happen because you blocked them with your obsessive control? Now visualize 10 years from now, same pattern, same attachment, same control. How is your spiritual life? Your inner peace? Your intimacy with God? Your ability to receive miracles? This visualization isn't to torment you. It's to reconfigure your priority system. Your heart needs to grasp a biblical truth. The greatest risk isn't letting go and things not turning out as you expected. The greatest risk is not letting go and living a lifetime of spiritual mediocrity. Proverbs 3:5-6 promises, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight." Once you fear controlling more than letting go, something supernatural happens. Holding on to control becomes more painful than trusting God. Understanding how the spiritual system of attachment works, you need to realize that God has specific methods for each situation in your life. Those methods need complete freedom to work properly. Knowing that your carnal mind will always try to regain control through worries, anxieties, and backup plans, you need to create a biblical anti-attachment system. One of the most scriptural ways to practice letting go is, first, one surrender at a time. Identify just one area where you need to let go of control today. Don't try to surrender your entire life at once. God works progressively, not instantly. Second, set a deadline for trusting. If you think you need results in 4 weeks, trust for 6. This builds genuine faith, not anxious expectation. Third, plan your celebration of God's faithfulness. Decide how you'll worship when He proves His ways are better than yours. Fourth, remove control triggers. Identify everything that feeds your need to control. News that generates anxiety, conversations that fuel worry, people who reinforce your fears. Worship must be intentional, not reactive. Instead of praising only when things go your way, worship because you trust God's character regardless. The hidden enemy of letting go. Spiritual perfectionism disguised as responsibility. Maybe you don't consider yourself a perfectionist, but do you recognize these thoughts? I can't let go completely because I need to be responsible. God expects me to do my part. If I let go of everything, I'll look spiritually lazy. I need to be sure I heard God right before letting go. These are control, thoughts disguised as spiritual wisdom. The biblical truth is, there's no perfect way to let go. There's only the moment you decide to trust God. Peter walked on water imperfectly, but he walked. The disciples followed Jesus' call imperfectly, but they were transformed. The woman with the issue of blood touched Jesus imperfectly, but she was healed. Apply the rule of imperfect letting go, instead of waiting of circumstances. When you turn worship into a response to God's faithfulness, 2 things happen spiritually. Letting go becomes easier because you remember how trustworthy God is, and miracles multiply because your faith isn't tied to outcomes. But there's an obstacle 95% of Christians face when trying to let go. If you don't understand this, you'll sabotage the entire process. Have enough faith to let go completely. Commit to letting go imperfectly for 2 minutes. No pressure to never worry again. Just surrender that situation to God in that moment. Why does it work? Because the biggest obstacle isn't letting go perfectly, it's starting to let go. Once you break the pattern of control, trust in God develops naturally. Finally, the most important question of all: what will motivate you to keep letting go even when your flesh screams for control? Even when things seem to go off track? Even when others question your passivity? Every Christian living in God's abundance has a deep motivation for letting go. It could be not wanting to steal God's glory by trying to author your own story, showing others that God is powerful enough to handle everything, building a legacy of faith for your children, or not dying with regrets for not trusting more. For me, it's simple. I don't want to reach eternity and discover how many miracles I blocked because of my obsessive control. What about you? What's your deepest motivation for letting go? When you connect letting go with an eternal purpose, controlling stops being an option. It becomes rebellion against God's perfect plan. Now let me tell you about people I've known for years. They come for Christian counseling, complaining that God isn't answering their prayers, that doors aren't opening, that miracles aren't happening. When I explain that the problem is their obsessive control, that they need to let go and trust, they agree intellectually. The next day, they come back with the same problem, the same complaint, the same anxiety. I explain letting go again. They agree. The next day, same thing. Third day, fourth day, months, years, the same pattern. It's tragicomic. The person suffers because they don't let go, receives biblical guidance to let go, agrees they need to let go, but keeps controlling, and still complains that God isn't blessing them. When we try to dig deeper into why they can't let go, what fear is behind the control, guess what happens? They change the subject. They start talking about another problem, another situation, another crisis. It's pure and simple denial of spiritual reality. The person wants the results of letting go while maintaining the behavior of controlling. It's impossible. Imagine the spiritual drama. Decades of suffering because they can't surrender a situation to God. The solution is simple: let go. But the ego refuses. It's literally choosing to suffer in control rather than thrive in trust. And the most astonishing thing, when you biblically explain why they're suffering, show verses, share testimonies of people who let go and were blessed, guess what happens at the next meeting? They completely forget that conversation and bring up an entirely different problem. It's as if their brain automatically erases any information that threatens their control system. They literally can't process the idea of letting go, even seeing positive results in others' lives. 16 years explaining the same principle to the same person. 16 years watching them suffer for not letting go. 16 years of, I agree, you're right, I need to let go, followed by zero behavioral change. And they still complain that God doesn't understand them, that prayers don't work, that life is unfair. It's a spiritual matrix, living inside a control system and wondering why there's no freedom. The question is simple: to be or to have. The Bible teaches that the question is to be. To be a child of God, to be confident in divine providence, to be grateful for what you already have, to be at peace even in uncertainty. But the world teaches that the question is to have control, to have guarantees, to have backup plans, to have the last word. As long as your paradigm is about having control over everything, you will inevitably have problem after problem. It's a very subtle but extremely effective spiritual slavery. Letting go is profound biblical wisdom. It's the most important thing a growing Christian needs to learn. When they master it, they're one step away from supernatural prosperity. But it's a spiritual work of art because there are people who persist in, I want it my way. Things have to work my way. I'm a victim of circumstances. Forever, without stopping. If someone lacks biblical guidance, fine, they're learning. But imagine someone who receives pastoral guidance, knows the verses, sees the testimonies, and the next day repeats the exact same controlling behavior. Then you patiently explain again that it's happening because of attachment, ego, forcing situations. That simply letting go into God's hands would solve the problem. The next day, they do the exact same thing and complain about the same issue. There are 365 days in a year. This happens 365 days. Second year, third, fourth, fifth. And it continues to this day. When you think the person is finally going to engage in a productive dialogue that will lead to spiritual growth, they completely deny it. They change the subject. The complaint continues, but about something else. It's pure denial of spiritual reality. And the most tragic part? The person is suffering unnecessarily. A single change in attitude, letting go, would stop the suffering immediately. When you try to explain this from a theological, philosophical, or practical angle, that this controlling attitude leads nowhere, guess what happens? The next meeting is about an entirely different topic. That problem disappears. It's astonishing. The denial is so strong that simply touching the core issue, the need to let go, makes the mind completely erase that situation. Analyzing it coldly, it's a spiritual tragedy. The person could be living in God's abundance, but chooses to live in the slavery of control, and still blames God for not blessing them. The solution exists. It's in the Bible. It's simple. Let go. But they don't incorporate the knowledge or the feeling needed to escape the situation. So they repeat the cycle endlessly. Of course, the situation is better than it was years ago. The spiritual growth process is slow, but real. But it could be much faster if the person simply applied. Being in the world, but not of the world. Being of the world spiritually is being completely under the control of external circumstances. It's having the same reactions, the same fears, the same need for control as someone without faith. And wanting solutions within this control paradigm is impossible for happiness, growth, or a quantum spiritual leap to escape the cycle of problem after problem. There's only one way out. Escape the matrix of control. Living inside the matrix of I need to control everything, there's no real solution. You're subject to all the problems inherent in a false conception of spiritual reality. For example, all this materialism, not truly believing in divine providence, not trusting in God's plan. Within this matrix of control paradigm, being happy is literally impossible. You have moments of pleasure when you manage to control a situation, when things go exactly as planned. But the backdrop of life is problems, and more problems because you're fighting against God's sovereign will. That's not abundant life. The abundant life Jesus promises is living in constant peace, knowing that God controls all things for the good of those who love Him. When you become spiritually enlightened about the power of letting go, you escape this constant depression of trying to control everything and stabilize in the peace that surpasses all understanding. And that's what it means to be truly prosperous, not just financially, but in every area. Comment now. What area of your life do you most need to let go to God? Be specific. When you verbalize it publicly, it becomes a spiritual commitment. If it's about relationships, write, I will let go of my relationships. If it's about finances, I let go of my financial future. If it's about children, I surrender my children to God. Your public declaration could be the turning point that releases God's supernatural power in your situation. My final spiritual challenge. Choose one area today and practice letting go for just 2 minutes. Pray like this. Father, I surrender specific situation completely into your hands. Your ways are better than mine. I trust you. Declare in the comments. I let go of control. If you're ready to experience the freedom and prosperity that come from trusting God completely. And if this video touched your heart, share it with someone who also needs to learn to let go. Sometimes God uses you to free someone else from the prison of control. May the God of peace complete what He started in you. Until the next video, and remember, letting go isn't losing control. It's recognizing who truly has control